Five, four, three, two, one.
Welcome to All Voices. I have a special guest with me. He is the mayor of Huntington, West Virginia, and he is a Democrat candidate for the office of governor of West Virginia. He is Steve Williams. Mayor, how you doing today?
Doing well, doing very, very well. It's
Good, good, good.
weather isn't rainy, it's sunny, and it's not too terribly hot. So we are getting into the fall season.
Yes, and football season is here. Yes, I'm glad.
Yes, indeed.
Before I get into my questions, Mayor, please tell the audience who is Steve Williams.
Um, Let me put it this way. A lot of people, they're wanting to know what you're going to do. It helps them to know what I've done. And I was born in Bluefield, West Virginia. Um, I grew up in Athens until I was 16 years old. I've been educated in the Mercer County and Cabell County schools. Ended up at Marshall University not long after the football crash. Was offered a scholarship to play football at Marshall and got my degree and graduated in honors on time in 4 years at Marshall. And then I went on to WVU and got my master's in public administration. My family's from West Virginia. As I said, I've been born here. My family's from West Virginia. My career has been in West Virginia. As I indicated, I've been educated in the school system in West Virginia, and my career has been in West Virginia, except for about a 6 year um, spot where I was in Chicago. The company I was with sent me from West Virginia into Chicago to manage the Chicago market, and that was a great opportunity, and I was scared witless. I just thought these sophisticated people aren't going to be able to deal with someone or accept someone from small town in West Virginia. And know what I ended up finding? It was amazing the number of people that I ran into in Chicago who were from West Virginia. A woman that helped me with my mortgage to buy a townhouse was from Welch. And we just, what I learned is that if you could go into a market like that, in order for us to be really good in West Virginia, it would be great in those markets because there's so many other people and there's such an economy of scale. But the reality is we can compete with anyone, and that helped me so much to understand, and has driven me to this day and has led me to understand why I'm running for governor. I expect us to be able to compete with the rest of the world. And I've had the years, 12 years as mayor of Huntington, and being able to demonstrate that we can compete with anybody in spite of all of our trouble, that we can go and compete with the largest cities in the world, and West Virginia can compete with the largest nations in the world because we have a grit and determination within our in our being growing up in Appalachia, that we have the capacity to be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with anyone. So this is who I am. This is what I bring to the table. And I'm looking forward to our conversation about issues that are facing the citizens of our state.
Mayor, what qualifications, I'm sorry, take that back. What inspired you to run for governor, and what qualifications do you bring to this role of governor?
Uh, what Let me back up a second, because what my 12-year experience in Huntington has been actually was the impetus for me to decide I needed to run for governor. Is that when I took over as mayor of Huntington, Huntington was known as the most obese, most unhealthy, and most addicted city in the nation. And frankly, there were people that were saying you should declare bankruptcy and just everything. And I was determined we weren't going to give up, and we certainly were going to bolster ourselves and find our way out of it and be able to together in our community be able to lift ourselves up. Well, we've been able to do just that. And as I said, if you want to know what I'm going to do, look at what I've done. We've turned Huntington around. Fiscally, we are really strong, strongest than we have ever been. People who were calling us the epicenter of the heroin epidemic now are calling us the epicenter of the solution to the heroin epidemic. And big cities, much larger cities, are coming in to Huntington to see what we have been doing to be able to turn things around. And when we look at all of these things that we have done, it occurred to me that as I started thinking about what my next steps would be, it was very obvious to me. I need to be governor of the state. And it's not out of ambition. Well, let me correct that. There is an ambition, but it's not my personal ambition. My ambition is to see that the citizens of our state have the ability and given the opportunity to be able to step forward and identify ways that every one of their communities would be able to address issues like the opioid epidemic, poverty, and such as that. When I'm saying that every community has the capacity to be able to address these things, I'm not saying do it the Huntington way. Lord, no. Why would they ever want to shoot so low? You take the opportunity that is in front of you and you determine within your community, what is it that we do better than anybody else in the world? And then start doing those things and taking people who are talent hiding in plain sight and lifting them up and giving them permission to be able to do bold initiatives. Frankly, it's amazing what we're able to do. This is why I decided to run for governor, because I know every county, every community in the state has the capacity to be able to do these things. Again, not the Huntington way, the Beckley way, the Bluefield way, the Parkersburg way, the Morgantown way, the Martinsburg, the Harpers Ferry, the Wheeling way, and whatever city I didn't mention, I wasn't on purpose. Everybody has the ability to be able to name what they can do and to take ownership of it and be able to come together as a community to turn our cities, our counties, and our state around.
Mayor, you mentioned that Huntington was the epicenter of the opioid crisis, and you turned it around. Will you apply that same blueprint to other cities here in West Virginia as well?
Well, let me explain what the blueprint is made up of, and let those who are listening think whether or not they can do this. And my bet is every one of them said, well, yeah, we have the capacity to do this. It's a very simple formula, is that communication, just like you and I are talking together right now, Ray, as we are communicating with one another, through that communication, we start to cooperate with one another, and that leads to collaboration. The 3 C's: communication, cooperation, collaboration. Those 3 things lead you towards making a partnership, deciding we are going to do these things to be able to lift our community up, and start identifying the different things that we're able to do. Well, once again, communication cooperation, collaboration, creating partnerships. Well, you know what we've established at that point is a level of trust with one another. And with that level of trust, we can start doing several different things together. It doesn't necessarily mean one particular thing. It opens up the door to everything. But the result is of this equation, so to speak, from a mathematics standpoint, is hope. What we then have as a community is hope, because then we know I can stand with this person who is just to my side and the other person who is on my other side, and we're communicating, we're cooperating and collaborating with one another. We start to find that, we trust each other enough to be able to take on the world, so to speak. And no matter how big the issue is, like the opioid epidemic, it might seem unjust as to how all of these hundreds of millions of pills were dropped into our communities and into our state. But the reality is that we're not going to play the victim game here. What has been done to us is unforgivable. But what we're going to do is not languish in this and be a victim. We're going to roll up our sleeves and say, all right, this was done to us, but we're going to take care of this ourselves, and we're going to pull ourselves out. That's the strength of West Virginia. That's the strength of growing up in Appalachia. And frankly, by doing that, we changed from being known as the epicenter of the heroin epidemic to the epicenter of the solution to the heroin epidemic. And as I said, we have found people hiding in plain sight that are brilliant and have capacity to be able to lift other people up. I'm encouraged and I'm enthused as a result of that, because if we do that, we can accomplish anything that we set our minds to.
Mayor, West Virginia has a rich history and heritage here. How do you plan to preserve that and address modern day challenges here in West Virginia?
Main thing is let's acknowledge who we are. In Huntington, I've put together some advisory groups to work very closely with me, so that we can take full advantage of the culture of Appalachia, the culture of our communities, and the ability for us to be able to embrace one another and accept that we have very distinct differences as well. And as a result of that, that actually strengthens our community. I've placed an awful lot of heavy emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion. There are some who try, it just amazes me that some people try to turn that into something that is negative, and I can't imagine anything that is more uplifting than making sure that we celebrate the level of diversity that we have. That the equity is simply saying we're giving everyone an opportunity to be able to succeed, that we're creating opportunities for everybody. We're not saying everything is equitable, that's what we're shooting towards, but it's up to us to create that level of equity. And inclusion, very simply said, is that we do have, naturally we have diversity within our state, but if we fully embrace inclusion, what we're doing is that we're opening up opportunity for everyone. That's what I believe, that our efforts in diversity, equity, and inclusion has made Huntington a much better city to be able to live in. I just got a letter today from someone that was just calling to thank me for what we have been able to do in Huntington. And he said at one point he moved away because he was seeing that Huntington was poverty-ridden, drug-addled, and just a place where there was no future for this person. And this person started traveling around the country and seeing what was in the largest and finest cities in the nation. And at one point, this person finally came back and started looking around at what we have in Huntington and the level of collaboration, the cooperation, once again, of individuals where we have said we are open to all. It was amazing that our businesses, our churches, our neighborhoods have stickers that they place on the door of their business or the front door of their church, saying this institution, this organization is open to all. We don't care what your race is. We don't care what your religion is. We don't care what other things that define you. You're welcome here. This is a safe space. And what I've seen is that it has just lifted up our city and has given us hope. And with that hope, we're leaning on one another to be able to see that what we are able to do is to make sure that we're enhancing everyone's life, and but also realizing that what happens behind somebody's doors, it's their own business. It's none of our business. And as a result of that, you have a quantity of spirit within the community that everybody lifts each other up.
You have said repeatedly, you have talked about women's rights. How do you plan on restoring women's rights if elected governor?
Absolutely. We will restore women's rights. I think it's best for me to put it this way. Our state motto is mountaineers are always free. That blessed better make sure that we are affirming that mountaineer women are also free as well. The way that we start doing this is one, the legislature needs to get out of the business of being in a doctor's office with a woman when she's making some decisions. Can you imagine half of our population has the government telling them what they can and cannot do from a healthcare standpoint? See, I believe, once again, that we need to set standards that the rest of the nation will seek to follow. Let's begin with making sure that we have the platinum level of care for women's health. And with that, let's then start continuing on to say that a woman's reproductive health and reproductive rights are her business and her business alone. It's not to say that there are women, families that have certain faith principles that they want to live by. Well, nobody's saying you can't live by those. We're simply saying, Ray, just because you believe something and your life's faith is based on that something does not necessarily mean that I have to live my life's faith choices in the very same way. My faith is very important to me. I accepted Christ in my life when I was 12 years old and was baptized, and and as a result of that relationship, it has made me the man who I am today. But that does not mean that when I look at that book and I read those scriptures and everything, that I'm reading it and then Ray Whiting must be believing exactly the same thing. That's not our freedom. That's not the nation that our Constitution is founded upon, and women's reproductive rights and women's health and women's rights are every bit as important as their male counterparts.
Speaking of rights, gun rights, Second Amendment, which is heavily favored here in West Virginia. What are your thoughts on the campus carry bill? And if elected, would you repeal that campus carry bill?
Well,
Campus carry law, rather.
I'm very concerned about that. I do believe in Second Amendment rights and that the right to bear arms, and I would not want to ever do anything to step in and interfere with someone's rights. But I also remember growing up and saying, you know, Steve, your rights start and stop where your nose is. You know, it doesn't extend on over to interfere with other individuals. I'm real concerned about campus carry. I'm concerned about teachers having being able to carry guns into the schools, simply because when I've hired police officers over all of these years, they have very rigorous training as to how they are to use that to protect the public. Well, when I'm looking on a college campus, I think that needs to be a gun-free zone. Fortunately, what I have been seeing in the way that it's being implemented is that they're placing an awful lot of warnings and some restrictions, but I don't know necessarily that they're doing anything right now that goes beyond where it's creating a major problem. As much as I don't want anybody coming in and messing with my rights, I don't want anybody coming in and as we just ended up recently hearing about that child, a 14-year-old child,
yes, in Georgia,
coming in and shooting up a school in Georgia. This is a sad time that we're living in, and as I see it, I don't care what 134 members of the legislature says. There's one person who will be elected to assure that our citizens are safe, and that would be me as governor of the state of West Virginia. And with that one person will be making statements, and I will use every bit of authority that I have within the boundaries of the law to make sure that we aren't inhibiting someone's rights, but we're also assuring that our colleges, our universities, our public schools, and our streets are safe.
Mayor, are you in favor of tax cuts?
Oh, heck yeah. I want to, absolutely. But there's got to be a good sense about how you go about doing it. I found a way to be able to spend 12 years, 10 of those 12 years trying to figure a way to be able to start reducing some of our taxes. And I did it in such a way that we were able to increase our revenue. We reduced business taxes on manufacturing and on retail and cut it in half on service businesses. And guess what happened? We increased enough business activity in our community that our revenues increased by over 33%. Now, you've got to be real careful in that. My concern is that where they're talking about coming in and eliminating and continuing to cut the personal income tax, we have an $800 million surplus. I don't know how long we're going to have something like that, but daggone, there are things like working with our teachers. We need to make sure that teachers are paid properly. We've got prisons that we need to make sure that they are staffed properly. We have water systems that need to be built, not just maintained properly. There are places down in McDowell County and Wyoming County and throughout southern West Virginia that we have to build water systems. And then you're coming in and saying, we're going to make sure that our personal income tax is lower than everybody else around. Well, I'd like for that to be, but I'm not going to give away I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater either.
Mayor, West Virginia state employees faced a premium increase, which was swallowed by the bump in pay. Well, the premiums did. It was swallowed by the bump in pay. And some benefits have decreased. If elected governor, how would you help alleviate the cost for out-of-state providers when in-state providers can't perform the procedure?
First and foremost, what we need to do is make sure that PEIA is funded properly for state employees. That's what we're talking about, correct? The
Yes.
PEIA system. I ran into this with my own healthcare benefits that we had for the citizens for our employees in Huntington.
Okay, go ahead.
Most important thing right now to be thinking is that from PEIA and making sure that we're able to provide the benefit for our state employees, whether in-state or out of state. What we have to make sure is that we have it properly funded. I believe that we need to have, and I'm not prepared to say what specific tax, but we need to have a dedicated tax to assure the PEIA is properly funded year in and year out. Because as we gave raises, it was all taken away just to be able to fund the increase in premiums and PEIA. What we've got to do, we have to have a dedicated revenue stream to assure that this benefit is, which is part of the compensation to our state employees, make sure that we have it properly funded so that that benefit is able to be spent just as much as their actual salary pays for groceries and housing and such.
Mayor, how would you tackle the overcrowding in the prisons?
Most important thing is we've got an $800 million surplus. I've got to make sure that it's funded properly. Now, I think one major aspect of the overcrowding in the prisons is that we have individuals serving prison sentences where they need to be in treatment, not necessarily in prison. Now, if they have violated the law because of their addiction and such, they need to pay their consequences. I believe in being compassionate, but I also believe in holding people accountable. But I think the vast majority of the overcrowding in the prisons, that the prisons are serving as a means through which to provide to put people through the system to be able to receive treatment. Well, that's not the purpose of a prison. I think we need to make sure that we have treatment facilities to take care of those in that regard, and I think that would reduce the overcrowding substantially.
Mayor Williams, your opponent, who is a lobbyist, he is the current Attorney General for West Virginia. Share your thoughts on the current situation to where allegedly some funds were misused by the current governor right now. And there has been a petition for the Attorney General to investigate and do an audit on that situation. Share your thoughts on that, and what would you do what would you recommend?
Well, the one thing that I'm hearing, I believe I'm hearing what you're saying, is that in the current governor's private business matters, that there have been some where employees haven't had their health benefits paid for. Well, that's something that they're working to try to resolve. But there are also the governor's current companies also haven't paid sales tax. They haven't paid property tax. They haven't paid all of these things. Well, guess what? If Steve Williams Inc. wasn't paying, wasn't remitting to the state the sales tax that was being charged to my to my customers, and I was just holding on to that, well, they'd be coming in knocking on the door with a summons to say you're going to jail for stealing people's taxes that they have already paid to others. I have challenged that the Attorney General needs to. The Attorney General doesn't have the authority to come in to place charges on anyone, but then the Attorney General does have investigative authority to be able to come in and review those things. And frankly, as I've observed of this Attorney General, he's very quick to sue the federal government, but when it comes down to somebody in his own party that he's not willing to do, all that says is that you're looking for a headline, and rather than deciding how to operate the bottom line.
How will you attract new businesses and industries to come to West Virginia?
The most important thing is to show that we have an inclusive environment, and that we welcome everyone. As I said, open to all. Not that you just meet these certain standard that you're white enough, you're old enough, you just all of these things that come in on the type of person that you love and the gender of who you care for. Those things have nothing to do with the construction, the building up of society. But the way that I would attract everybody and the businesses in the area is make sure that we have, one, that we are healthy, that we have from a healthcare standpoint, that we have a platinum standard to be able to provide that in our school system, that we're able to assure that our public schools, as well as our universities and our community colleges, are able to are robust enough to make sure that this new digital economy thrives in West Virginia. We have all the natural resources available. What we have to be able to do is to show that we are innovative in such a way that people are wanting to come in to be a part of us, rather than looking at some level of suspicion. The key is for us all of us, to demonstrate that we are open to all, that we're embracing anybody and everybody to come in, and that you're welcome into West Virginia. The reality is that's normally how we go about doing things in our small towns throughout the state. What we have to do is make sure that we're telling the world just that, and not letting them see the stereotypes that have plagued us over the years.
Mayor, West Virginia is ranked at the bottom when it comes to education, when it comes to
infrastructure,
healthcare, and everything.
Education outcomes.
What is your plan to turn that around and make it better here?
Well, very simply put, is that, as I have indicated, when I came into Huntington was the most obese, most unhealthy, most addicted city in the country. And what we decided to do is that we're going to up our game, start stating and setting high standards for ourselves. And a lot of people were just kind of looking, going, Well, what good is that going to do? Well, after a while, the word kind of got out, and then people started coming in. I've had Louisville come in to look at how we're doing things. I've had Memphis come in to look at how we're doing things. I've had Indianapolis come in to look at how we're doing things. I even had Staten Island come in to look at how we're doing things. Been invited to Stanford and to NYU and to some of the largest universities across the country to talk about what we are doing. Very simply put, is we have to up our game. Is that I want us to see a swagger uh, of our people. Is that when individuals are talking about West Virginia, there was a time in Huntington when someone they'd ask, "Well, where are you from?" They said, "Well, I'm from Huntington." But now in Huntington, they'll come in and say, "I'm from Huntington, West Virginia," and then have a bit of a swagger when when you're talking about this. Well, people will say, "Well, where are you from?" "You're from West Virginia? How in the world did you all get things turned around where such innovation is occurring within our state?" And he said, "Who would have ever dreamed that these things would be happening in West Virginia?" And know what our answer will be? We did. We dreamed it. We expected this. This isn't a surprise. It's built in our DNA to be innovative. Those individuals who came and settled into this area of Appalachia, all they wanted to have was to be able to have their own plot of land, be able to do whatever they wanted to do. Nobody could come in and tell them how to handle their family and their plot of land, and they brought whatever they could bring on the back of a mule, on the back of a horse that they carried themselves, or they would whatever they brought in, or if they needed something, they would grow it or they would build it. But there's one other thing that we learned to do over these 100+ years is that we also learned how to repurpose things. Is that we would end up having this pen that we'd be able to work with, and all of a sudden there's something else that we find that we'd be able to do with this pen. This is called applied engineering. We were the first applied engineers in the New World. So when I look at what we are able to do, and my aspiration is to, as I said, to have a bit of a swagger in our walk, is it something that has certainly been well earned, but then we're able to then spread that word throughout the world. We will set standards that the rest of the nation will seek to emulate.
Mayor Williams, how do you plan to prepare West Virginia jobs for the youth here? Will you create a summer job program here for the youth?
Well, first and foremost, specifically summer job programs for the youth. I think what we could do is this is where we have partnership with cities and also with counties to encourage to have a summer youth employment program. We've done that in Huntington, and it's amazing how many young people that we've been able to have come in and actually intern with us, and then they've turned into full-time jobs. But what we also have is the opportunity within this digital age, what we're able to do in advanced manufacturing, we're in advanced energy. Once again, where I was saying applied engineering, going down into the coal fields of the mines that have been closed, what we're starting to find is that there are rare earth minerals that can be drawn out of that seepage in the mines that are killing the life within our creeks and streams. What I'm starting to find and learn from others is that there's technology that's developing right here in West Virginia to come in and find those rare earth minerals that are found in the seepage out of the mines. We're able to clean up the mines, but those are rare earth minerals that we're talking about mostly are are found in China right now. Well, we have all of these mines that we're able to come in and be able to repurpose things. It helps clean up the environment, but it also gives us the ability to compete and create jobs here. We have data centers that we'd be able to develop here. You don't have to have a bachelor's degree or a PhD in order to be able to do these things. Coming out of school, you could also have additional training within the community colleges to be able to provide these jobs. So what I'm seeing is that uh, there's one very, very active and famous mayor, female in this country, and we were in a mayor's institute together for a year, and she came in, was talking about where she learned how to interact in an office environment because she was placed in a summer youth employment program. And she said the first day she walked in to work, she came in cutoffs and a tight t-shirt. And she said that there was enough love and compassion in that organization to pull her aside and said, this is how you dress properly. Now, if I tell you this mayor's name, and I'm not going to use her name because I haven't been given permission to talk about this, but you see her, and there is a level of dignity about her that she knows how to carry herself, how presents herself. But I'm telling you, she's not wearing cutoffs and she's not wearing tight t-shirts. She is a highly professional woman, and she's a mayor of one of the largest cities in the country. And I went to her just this past year and I said, I created a youth summer employment program based on what you just told me. And boy, I got the biggest hug in the world.
Where do you stand on the Crown Act?
Oh, we passed that in Huntington. We weren't the first to do it, but we absolutely had that presented to Huntington City Council, and it passed unanimously. Is that sometimes you have to kind of look back and you just kind of forget what it was like when you were young. I remember when I was coming up through high school and in college, uh, uh, my teammates would have these big fros, and they had the pick to be able to. And I found myself later, never thought anything about the fros. But then I started seeing braiding and everything, and I was like, why is that? And then I realized, Steve, all that is the style that you recognized years ago to today, and they've just accepted for what it is. I remember my dad telling me when I would let my hair grow down over my ears, they were saying, we're not going to have any hippies in this house. Well, within a year or so, I never wore my hair long, but it would be right over my ear a little bit. But that just there are more important things than we need to be worrying about with that. And this is just as it was the hippies back in my day as I was growing up, with my brothers, the teammates, and had the big fros. That's why I wanted to pass the Crown Act, because I just felt like let's just leave kids alone, leave individuals alone from how they express themselves.
How do you plan to improve mental health services here in West Virginia?
Well, the one thing that I found is a great deal of addiction and homelessness and such is dealing principally with the level of addiction that we have leads to mental illness. One thing that we will do in the schools, we need to have a behavioral health professional, counselor in every school. Let me give an example as to why. I have in Within the police department, I have a couple of behavioral health counselors that are right there to be able to work with their police officers as we go out and they find somebody that is having a mental health episode, that our police officers are trained as to how to be able to handle that, but we also have someone who is embedded within the police department to actually be right there to be able to handle that. You want the training for the police officer because oftentimes there's not time for that behavioral health specialist that's embedded in the department to be able to get to that incident. And we had in the last year an incident such as that. And you could see everything that our police officer, it was a tragic ending, but how our police officer sought to try to de-escalate. But what we also have found is that our helpers need help. We need to help the helpers. I've seen the level of mental anguish and crises that our first responders have had, police officers and firefighters, is that what we ended up doing is that we received extensive funding from the Bloomberg Foundation and others where we created a wellness program, mental and physical health wellness, where we have behavioral health counselors as well as physical fitness counselors that are on our employment to be able to provide our first responders. Well, the reason I bring this up, Ray, is that we've done an awful lot of research and have compiled data on this as to how to make sure that this is something that can be also done elsewhere, that it can be replicated in other means. Well, while I'm doing this within the police department, we've had a lot of police departments and fire departments come in to see what we're doing. But this can also be done in emergency rooms in hospitals. This could also be done and replicated in school systems for the teachers who are having to deal with behavioral health issues and the strain that it places on them. As I've indicated with the homeless, that we have to have a compassion in being able to help provide individuals their ability to be able to lift them up and get them some help. But we also need to have to hold on to that which we love within our community, a level of accountability as well. What we've told our police officers is that do everything you can to try to de-escalate, but if somebody does step into, and I'm not talking about camping or anything like that, those are things that we have to deal with in each of our individual communities. But when somebody steps out of line and actually breaks the law, then we've got to, then you don't just excuse them that this is a mental health episode. If they step out, then there is a level of accountability. And this is a fine line to have to walk. But what I'm pointing out, Ray, is that what I'm bringing to the table is something that nobody else has the experience of doing. Is that certainly my opponent or my opponents have never had to deal with these things. And that's why, and I'm reversing back to what we talked about originally, is communication, cooperation, collaboration, leading to partnerships, establishing trust, and creating hope. That's a formula that works in all things, on the dark side of the street, but also on the sunny side of the street when creating economic opportunity.
If elected governor, what steps would you take to ensure accountability and transparency in your administration?
It begins with me. It begins with me. I found early on when I was first mayor, dealing with some things, and I was thinking, somebody needs to do something. Well, guess who that somebody was? It had to be me. And the way you create accountability and transparency is that you decide, Who's going to own this? There's a problem that's there, and you've got to name it, and then you own it. By naming it, stating it for what it is, not making excuse, not laying it on out there and everything, and trying in a folksy manner to be able to push it aside, say it very specifically. This is what we're dealing with. It's named. Who owns it? There's one person that owns it. I've got broad shoulders. The governor owns everything that happens within the administration, and you don't pass it off to someone else. Now, I can't know what everybody is doing, but if every member of my administration knows that I am the one that is taking responsibility for it, by God, they're going to be taking responsibility themselves, or they won't be part of my administration much longer.
Mayor, the teachers in West Virginia are paid one of the lowest in the nation. Surrounding states, they're paid more. How do you plan to address the teacher pay issue?
First, we have to lift ourselves up. Now, I'm not looking to be ranked 25th. I want us to be the best in the country on everything that we're doing. So both of my parents were teachers, and I'm awfully proud of that profession. My brother and I went on and never didn't go into the family business, so to speak. But as I look at it, we have to set. It's a matter of what you set your goal towards. Let me give an example. My police officers and my firefighters had not received raises for 6 years. We have bargaining agreements with our employees, police officers, firefighters, our public works employees, and I've negotiated 16 contracts with them successfully, and we've saved pension funds, we've saved healthcare funds. We've also made sure that we paid raises, and our employees got raises over the 12 years that I've been in office, over 48% pay increases. Now, what I did specifically for the police officers, I wanted them to be the highest paid police officers in the state. Guess what? They're the highest paid police officers in the state. I think the Eastern Panhandle has some differential pay just because of that metro market up there. But our police officers are paid more than the state police are. As governor, you set a goal, set a vision. This is where we're going to be. And then I started giving instructions. All right, how do we get to this point? Now, and we could have several different ways as to get there, but this is where we're going to go. Now, with teachers, when I expect us to do a couple of things, we need to have what I call a market differential. Is that if you're in the Eastern Panhandle and you're going up against Maryland and Pennsylvania and Virginia, as we are in my Huntington area, I've got Kentucky and Ohio that we're having. I can't remember how many counties in our state. The vast majority of our counties are on borders. We need to have a market differential, but we also need to lift our pay up to a standard that we are paying the professionals to accomplish what we need to do. But also, the way that we end up doing this is quit bleeding or quit stealing money away from our public education system and letting it be privatized. You know, one thing I'm learning is that several of the Hope scholarships that are being used for private education for people to pay the private education, I'm still trying to get the exact amount, but it's amazing the number of Hope scholarships that are paying for our students to go into public and private education in other states. No. It's amazing what we'd be able to do for our teachers if we just made sure that we kept the money in our public education. If someone wants a private schooling, that's fine. They can pay for it. There might be some special type of education that someone would have and needs an educational resource that is not available in the public education, then allow that to be paid into the private organization. But the bottom line is, and it all comes down to this: you set the goal, set your sight on the vision. This is where, being very clear, this is where we need to be. I want our teachers to be the highest paid in the nation. I don't give a flip if people are in California or in New York or in Florida or anything. I want our children to have the best teachers that they can be, and then we pay them accordingly. And as a result, we also place the level of expectation there too, to see that we're receiving the educational outcomes.
I have a few more questions. I'm going to let you go. How do you plan to address the poverty and inequalities here in West Virginia?
This really worries me. I deal with this every single day now, is that in Huntington, it's a tale of two cities, the haves and the have-nots. In 1/3 of our city's population in Huntington lives under the poverty line. Another 16% are what they called asset limited income constrained individuals. These are the working poor. So what I have is 48% are living day to day, and then 52% are living comfortably. I believe that education creates the opportunity for everyone. I saw what happened to both of my parents and their siblings, is that they grew up in coal miners' families. They didn't have much, could say that they were poor, but every one of my parents and my aunts and uncles all ended up going on to college and getting advanced degrees. Now, we're not wealthy by any means, but we had a very comfortable life. What I've seen is that college isn't for everyone, but an education is. And what we have to do is make sure that we are providing the platinum level. Again, I'm using the word platinum level, but the platinum level of education for our children, and creating the opportunity for them to be able to come out through trade schools to community colleges, and possibly, if it's necessary, to be able to go on to college. I also want, for those who can't afford it, to make sure that just because they can't afford to go to college doesn't mean they can't go to college. Is that we make sure that they're able to go to college, and we have the means to pay for their tuition and such. Marshall and WVU are doing these things right now, and I think there's a way for us to be able to include the community colleges as well. I remember one of the state senators a few years back was saying having free community college, once, much like you would have, we have free public education, well, we have free community college tuition for anybody in the state of West Virginia to come in and be able to learn some skills. All of these create opportunities for us, and frankly, it just seems to me that if we create that opportunity for them to be able to rely upon an education to be able to lift them up, is that if you have this in each of our communities, and let's remember the way our four-year colleges and so many of our community colleges around the state, there's not an area of the state that doesn't have a four-year college, university, or community college everywhere in the state, or no less than a 30-minute drive away. We need to create that opportunity. And the beauty of it is these were decisions that were made in the 1920s and 1930s to see that all of that was available. I think we rely on that and we create that opportunity, then that starts creating opportunity for all. It's open to all once again.
Mayor, if elected, what legacy do you hope to leave behind as governor of West Virginia?
Interesting. The reason I smile on this is that I was at a Rock the Vote program at South Charleston High School today with the seniors that were coming through. And that was one of the questions that was coming up. What would you want your legacy to be? There's a Chinese proverb that says that when a leader's work is done and the aim is fulfilled, the people will say, we did this for ourselves. When the leader's work is done, the aim is fulfilled, the people will say, we did this ourselves. My legacy would be when I'm walking away and then people are and the level of progress that we're going to be having is I want to hear people talking about, look what we did. Not what Steve Williams did. Look at what we did. Let me give an example. In Huntington, we recently had a new baseball stadium that's been talked about for 50 years. And then the new baseball stadium, when I came into office, I said, we are going to build a baseball stadium in Huntington before I leave office. Well, guess what? Sometimes it's better to be more lucky than good. Through some of the problems, the rescue plan of with COVID and everything, we got a big appropriation of funding, and I took $8 million of that 40+ million that was given to my city, and $8 million to go towards the construction of the stadium. And the governor came in and matched some of what we were doing. And then all of a sudden it got done. And now there's a baseball stadium. They're playing baseball games there now. And for a lot of folks, that doesn't sound like a big deal. But would you imagine how many people are claiming credit for getting this stadium built right now? Now, I know where it got started. Nobody was talking about it when I became mayor 12 years ago, and when I was saying we are going to do this, and I stayed diligent as to keep pushing at what we're wanting to do. Well, I was the one that decided that we were going to join the America's Best Communities competition. 352 communities around the nation were chosen in a size of 8,000 to 80,000 to bring up an economic revitalization plan in their community. Nobody gave us a chance at all of even making it to the quarterfinals or anything. And not only we made it to the quarterfinals and the semifinals and the finals, we won the daggone thing. But what we ended up winning, and now all of the things that are going on, because we ended up having a lot of people criticizing and trying to make a punchline out of it. But because we won that $3 million prize, $515 million of investment has been leveraged in our community. And guess what folks are talking about? Of all the things that are going on the innovation district that's occurring down 4th Avenue and Hal Greer Boulevard, where we've torn down a factory on the other side of Marshall University that was built originally in the 1870s, and now that was there. All of this is being redeveloped. And then what we're doing around the hospitals, and everybody's talking about what they have done. Listen, I'm leaving office as mayor on December 31st, and I'm proud to be able to walk through my town and be able to see what people in the community are saying, look what we've been able to do. My prayer is that I will be able to help lift people's spirits enough to feel confident in themselves that they can say, look at what we have been able to accomplish.
Now, you say people claiming credit. You care to say who?
Oh, everybody. I mean, it's not just a couple of people. Oh Lord. I mean, I'll be somewhere and they'll be talking about how they got this done, and I'm sitting there going, they had no idea how we even started doing some of these things. But what we have done in our community, the plans that we put in place were all created by the citizens of the community, where we had meetings. Remember, let's go back to what I said at the very beginning, the 3 C's, communication, cooperation, collaboration. Well, we've had an awful lot of that. And then we started building some partnerships to be able to get these things done. And as a result of that, all of that trust has led to hope. I'll look over at my wife when they're saying this, and she knows what I'm saying. I said, see, everybody's claiming credit. That's fine. That's why we do these things. And I've learned this through my entire public life. As I go back into the mid 1980s, when I first was elected to the legislature, and some things that I was doing there, the things that we were able to accomplish. I know that I drove some things, but I was a member of 134 members of the legislature. But I saw where I was able to make a difference. Nobody cares. Nobody knows. I know what I've been able to do, and my legacy is seeing that individuals throughout the state of West Virginia are walking with their shoulders squared, standing tall, having a swagger, saying, we're from West Virginia. I guess it's best to put it this way in 5 words. West Virginians lead the way. West Virginians lead the way.
Final question. You ready?
Yes.
Why should the voters choose Steve Williams as the next governor of West Virginia?
Very simply, I have the experience and I have the leadership skills. I have done this before. I walk in, my first day in office will not be in January 2025. If I'm declared that I am the winner of the race on the night of November 5th, November 6th, I begin working right then. And I know how to be able to organize communities and how to organize individuals to be able to lift our state up. I'm the only one who has done it. And I will not need on-the-job training. And very simply put, I've been built to be able to do this. And this is the natural next step for me. If I could do it for Huntington, then I can do it for all 55 counties and every other community in the state. And it won't be something that I will do. It's what the citizens of our state will do for themselves.
Mayor Steve Williams, Huntington, West Virginia, I want to thank you for coming on to Our Voices. You take care and be safe, okay?
And you too. Thank you, sir.